So this next soap series that I'm starting is 100% a pet project. And I wondered about doing this because I wondered how big of an audience it would reach. And then I started thinking about all the conversations I have had with many of you, and also many of my sudsers that don't even watch my YouTube thing over the years in, life. And I think this one will actually go down very well because I think there are more history buffs out there than I'm giving you all credit for. And so we're doing a weird, cool, very much me specific. I love it a lot. I'm very excited for it. Line, series, thing that we're starting today. And I will tell you all about it in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You're at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 142 of 365 days of soap. And as I said, we are starting a new series today, and that series is called Sister Sets, and not like James Charles' sister. Royal sister sets? This particular set, they aren't both royal. So here's the thing. While I am making soap and doing things throughout my life, I am always listening to something. Actually, usually two things. There's usually music going on, and there's a podcast of some sort going on, or YouTube that I treat as a podcast. And a few months ago, I was actually listening to this absolute history thing where they did like a sister series, and they broke down and gave more of an in-depth analysis of three sister groups kind of during the Tudor era, starting in the Tudor era and then going on to current day with kind of royal sister sets. And so Mary and Anne Boleyn, Mary and Elizabeth, Margaret and Elizabeth. And I thought that series was so well done, and it really gave us a different perspective on these six women because, Princess Margaret and Queen Elizabeth II, obviously, they're modern royalty, and we have more information about them now than we had about Maryboleyn, Anne Boleyn, Queen Mary, and Queen Elizabeth I. And so, as a result, they sort of get remembered, I don't know, either really kind of not fun way to dial down a person in totality to like the worst things they've ever done, i.e. Bloody Mary, or Maryboleyn being like a mistress of several royal people, or, really romanticize like how great and awesome the Virgin Queen was. And she was great and awesome. Like she really was, but she had her little things too. And so I thought it would be fun to make this series and talk about the history that I learned, and also really encourage you to go and listen to this series on your own, after you're done with my video. But I thought it'd be fun to make some soap for all of these women and talk about them in a, kind of fun way. So we'll see how this all works out. I'm hoping it works out well. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's go to the video and we can talk about Maryboleyn because she's first on deck. Okay, so we are starting with Maryboleyn. And the reason why we're starting with Maryboleyn is the most obvious thing in the world, because Maryboleyn is important. And you might not think so, and that's fine. But you heard the last name, right? Boleyn. Where do you know that name? Why do you know that name? Sounds pretty familiar, right? Oh, the sister of Anne Boleyn. Yeah, that. So why do we care about Maryboleyn? Well, you're going to find out in this very awesome pour of a very not known person. Because she actually isn't well known. We don't have a lot of information on her. And that sucks. So we're going to talk about what information we do know from her throughout this video. Why? Because, well, I'm making the soap and I'm into English history and I want to. And that's the whole reason. Now, for the pour itself, we are doing like an internal swirly swirl thing. Real term. Real term in soap making. It's a real term. Internal swirly swirl thing with the Boleyn colors. And the Boleyn colors are red and black. And on their sigil, there's like 3 bulls. Sigils are fun too, by the way. Like for those of you who have house sigils, like real house sigils, can you like comment below what they are or like give me a link to what they are? Because that's really cool. Us as like Americans, we don't actually have that. But Mr. Soap and Clay, his family hails from Scotland. And so we do have that guy. And we're from, Clan McBain or McBean or, whatever. And it's like a cat with like its tongue hanging out, kind of like the Lannister sigil. You get it. But, and then like the house motto is touch not a cat without a barge, which means like don't touch a cat without a shield, I guess. He's not here to actually say it in like Scottish terms, but it's a whole thing. And those sigil things are really cool and they're fun. Anyway, the Boleyn clan, it was red and 3 black bulls on a white background. And so that's why I'm designing the soap the way that I'm designing it, really. That's the whole reason. Let's go on to the pour of this guy. It's going to be a good time. Okay, now before I forget what I scented this with, it's rosemary for remembrance. Ha! Because I could have forgotten it. That's funny. Well, it's funny. Whatever. And spicy orange. Because she's a bit spicy, right? Maryboleyn is known in history as the great and infamous whore. And that's kind of all we know about her. We generally know that she is the elder sister of Anne Boleyn. And the reason why we know that is because nothing in any accounts of history suggests that Anne Boleyn was the first daughter of the Boleyn clan. And so we just assume, therefore, it must be Mary. These are the assumptions that we make. Now, the Boleyns were like, they were an important house, but not so important that any of their birth and death and marriage logs were really super cataloged, right? But based on the way that things were cataloged, if Anne Boleyn had been the elder sister, that would have been made known during her time spent married to Henry VIII. And so, since that was not made known, we have to assume Maryboleyn, the elder sister. Okay, now what do we know Maryboleyn for? Well, she's most famously known as being the great and infamous whore of, for sure, Henry VIII. Like, for sure. But also, probably, also the King of France. And she spent some time away from court in France. Between France and going back to England. Just, we have no record of her. Which can suggest any number of things, right? Historically, we assume that suggests that she was sent somewhere to kind of ride out the storm because she kind of had a bad ending with whatever mischief she got up to in France. But, mischief in and of itself also bothers me just across the board. Like, whatever. So many things about all of these women of this time bother me. And one of the things really is that, like, why is it that the woman who is doing the thing that a very important ruler, be it France, be it England, be it whatever, wanted her to do, and as a female, you had very limited options in life, like up until, I don't know, how many options do we have now? So let's say up to, 5-ish years ago, you kind of had to do what the menfolk of the world, especially the royal and important menfolk, decided you should do, right? So who the hell was going to turn down being the mistress to any royal person? No one. No one. That's career suicide at that point. Your options are what? Say no to a royal person and become a nun? Or like that's it. That's the whole list. Anyway, Maryboleyn, she actually became the mistress to Henry VIII, we assume, after she married this Carey guy. Carey, whatever. And he was actually kind of highly thought of in court at the time. And again, he also had less options, even as a guy, through all this, as, the royal king, the monarch. And so, again, what were his options? Was he going to become a cuck? Yeah, he was going to kind of become a cuck. Why? Well, because Henry VIII decided that he wanted to take his wife as a mistress. And there wasn't a whole lot that you could do about that. And so, therefore, Henry VIII's mistress, she became. Now, through their courtship or their whatever, right? During that time period, she produced 2 children. She produced a girl named Catherine and a boy named Henry. Pretty sure Catherine Carey, Henry Carey. Pretty sure that's right. I'm going to look it up real quick. Yeah, no, Catherine and Henry. And this was during the time that she was thought to have been a mistress of Henry VIII. And so this is why that people think, well, maybe that means that Maryboleyn's children with this Carey dude that she married are actually Henry VIII's kid. Because how could you know? And that's the thing. How could you know? Back then, you literally freaking could not know. But today, you can DNA test that shit, right? And so you can find out. And so I find this interesting because Maryboleyn, kind of forgotten in history, because Anne is obviously the more, I'm not going to say important, but the more well-known Boleyn sister, for sure, because she married Henry VIII. She famously told Henry VIII, no, I'm not going to be your mistress. And Henry VIII, wildly, for like a decade, tried to make this woman his wife. For like a literal decade, trying to divorce his first wife just to marry Anne Boleyn. And so, like, okay, so she's the more famous one, I guess, or whatever. But the cool thing about Maryboleyn is that her actual legacy lives on literally today. And it doesn't actually matter whether or not the child was sired by, Henry VIII or the Carey dude, right? What is his name? William? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I don't care about that guy. The point is, the lineage of Maryboleyn literally sits on the throne today. And so the Tudor dynasty ended with Elizabeth I. Like, it ended. All done. We're done. And now today, hundreds of years later, Elizabeth II is a direct descendant of Maryboleyn, as is Fergie, who used to be married to Prince Andrew, and Kate Middleton, who is currently married to Prince William. Or that's his name, right? Prince Charles's kid? The first one? Yeah. So the Boleyns They are all up in the royal line right now from the sirage of like the great and infamous whore. So, yeah, like let that sink in. Maryboleyn, the great and infamous whore, someone that we know very little about. Her lineage exists on the throne today. And would it be cool if that lineage was also Tudor? Boleyn and Tudor. I mean, I don't know. Define cool, right? Like, I don't... Personally, I find the Tudor dynasty wildly fascinating. I really do. I love studying it. I love talking about it and thinking about it. And also, look how gorgeous those bars are. Isn't that beautiful? It's a good time right there. Like, it's fun. It's fun to think about, but personally, I don't know. I kind of like the way that the Tudor dynasty ended with Elizabeth I. And basically this big struggle of survival. Like, really, I honestly think that's the whole reason why she never married or decided to, I don't know, relinquish any of her power, be it as a monarch or as like a person, because women are subservient to men in her life. I think she was just out for making sure that she survived because, you know, she watched her mother not survive and countless others actually throughout her life. And so, I don't know, I kind of like that the Tudors died the way that they did. And they ended with Elizabeth I. So to think that there could be a Tudor / Boleyn currently on the throne today, I don't like that. I don't like that nearly as much as knowing that there is a Boleyn on the throne today. And it's the direct lineage of like multiple Boleyns. So if any crazy catastrophic thing happened in the royal line right now, a Boleyn would still be on the throne, and that Boleyn comes from Maryboleyn. Somebody that we know almost nothing about in history. And I don't know, I think that's a kind of fitting and cool way to permanently honor this woman that we should know more about, but sadly we don't. That is day 142. Yeah, so Maryboleyn is actually a very interesting one because actually not a lot is known about her and the periods of time that she just disappeared from records. Obviously also because they're not super royals, we don't know a whole lot about Mary and Anne Boleyn outside of their involvement with different royal families and royal courts. And for Mary, again, as I said, she would disappear from court for years at a time, and she just kind of remains a mystery. And that's kind of sad, but also I find it interesting, and I had to include her anyway, because Anne Boleyn has a frickin' sister, okay? So we're gonna do the thing. And Anne Boleyn and Mary shared a lover. So that's also interesting to me too, that's just a thing. But anyway, yes, there's Maryboleyn. I actually really enjoyed pouring this, and I am looking forward to, you know, the Anne Boleyn bar as a sister bar, and that will be going tomorrow, I think. So you should definitely come back and watch that one. Speaking of coming back, the best way to be reminded that I post a video at all is to, you know, click the subscribe button. For those of you who have done that, hi Sudzer, thank you. Are you into history? I'm really into history. I'm specifically into this period of history, like the Tudor Elizabethan era. Love it so much. So yeah, if you are, drop your comments below. Talk to me about what history periods you find fascinating, because I like all types of history and I want to chat with you about that. I'm out of here for today, but I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.